Hi there. This is a response to Act Theatre's question, what is feminism to you? Now, before I start this video, I am going to take issue with the question, what is feminism? Because feminism as a movement, really when it boils down to it, is just a human rights movement. It encompasses women, but it affects absolutely everyone. It affects their children, it affects their families, it affects their friends, it affects on a larger scale how society functions, because you're basically asking, feminism's basically asking for women, i.e. more than half of the population of the planet, to be given equal rights to the other half, be that other half comprised of men or anyone else who identifies differently on the gender binary. But you're basically asking, are we going to give everyone the basic human rights which are required to function in a modern day society? And I don't understand why that's even an issue. And I can only imagine that the only reason you need a movement is to change something, no? Or to bring an issue to light. So the fact that the movement even exists already shows that there was a gaping hole in society where women turned around and went, sorry, but we're not living the dream here. We haven't been for the last 3,000 years. Why are we second-class citizens? And from there, people started to think, okay, maybe you're not just baby machines and homemakers. Maybe you can actually do something more productive with your lives, or something, or do that and as much as you want, because there's nothing wrong with homemakers and mothers. We love them. So the fact that the movement emerged, and I'm calling it, well, let's call it a revolution. Just quote Gloria Steinem there for a minute. It's a revolution, and therefore a developing movement, because it's not over yet. It started, well, what, a century ago, roughly, at this point, and it hasn't stopped, and it probably won't stop, because there's such a deep-rooted fear, I think, of the female potential. I think people, including women, this includes women, we are terrified of our potential, men are terrified of us, other human beings, we scare people. Women really frighten people, and I would say it's just because we're majestic, fabulous people, but it's because we've been controlled by, again, I hate to throw out the word patriarchy, but I have to because that's what it is. We've been controlled by the powers that be for so long, for millennia really, that it's sort of become ingrained in our psyches, this idea that we are, have to be subversive to men, and even if we do fight back, it's not necessarily going to shatter that darling glass ceiling we all hate so much. And no matter how hard we try, sometimes it seems that there are always going to be barriers. But what I think we don't realize is that it's not just women who suffer from those barriers. It's not just women who are scarred by the injustices committed against women. It's everyone is affected. When women are affected by something, everyone's affected by it. It's especially their young children. And we need to wake up and realize that it's not, I don't think we should be calling it feminism. I think we should be calling it the new wave of humanism. Because you're effectively granting half the world equal rights to the other half of the world. And yeah, it's okay, it's not half and half, but it's a big enough population that really we should have the same rights. And I think if we start I think it starts with education. And if you start educating young children, and by young I mean, from the day they're born, especially if you tell young boys that women are equal, they deserve the same rights, and they should be loved and respected, then by the time they're teenagers and and then subsequently young adults, they're going to have a much stronger sense of responsibility and respect for women and our contribution to society. And it's great to empower women. I'm not saying we should just empower the young men. We need effectively you're empowering human beings to take charge of their lives and change the way that our social constructs have been built up around us for the last goodness knows how long. For the last 2,000 years. It's a long time, and there's a lot to be undone. There's a lot of damage, frankly, that needs to be undone. And we're getting there. But we need to stop calling it feminism. We need to start calling it humanism. Because we are human. And yes, we are chemically, emotionally, psychologically different from men. But basically, we're human. And we're asking for the exact same treatment. And we've proven, I think, pretty well that we are worth exactly the same as men are worth. Our human rights should not be based on our DNA. It just shouldn't be. So, if we start to teach children that if a woman is raped, assaulted, harassed, heckled, harassed in any way, it does not matter how she's dressed. It should not. It does at the moment, but it shouldn't. If a girl sleeps around more, if a girl were to sleep around as much as men are allowed to, she's called a slut. Because women are supposed to be pure, we can't go do that. It isn't done. We're not allowed to express our sexuality the same way that men are. And I'm not just having a rant about that, it's absolutely true. We just need to recognize that we should be treated as human beings and not put up on pedestals so high that we inevitably will fall because human beings are flawed. And therefore the system that we've built to equally support ourselves and restrain ourselves is flawed. Having said all this, I get the sensation that a lot of people feel that feminism is anti-men. And I've met a lot of feminists who think that men are the enemy. Men are not the enemy. Men are human beings. Again, feminism is a human issue, so you need to educate all the humans about the human issue. You can't just educate the women, you can't just educate the men, everyone needs to know about it. So, I would ask of anyone who considers themselves a decent human being to stop hating the men, stop blaming the women, and let's have a conversation about it. And then, who knows, someday we can have a woman president. That'd be great. Thanks for listening.